Welcome back to the Autoblog Podcast. I'm Greg Migliore. We've got an awesome show for you this week. We're going to talk Cadillac. We're going to talk Kia Seltos. We're going to talk about our long-term Subaru WRX. It's really good in the snow. It did snow this morning. Got some news to talk about, including Tesla and Chrysler's possible 300 successor, and maybe a successor to the Kia Stinger, reborn perhaps as the Kia EV8. We will spend your money. So let's bring in senior editor for all things electric and perhaps electric/pivot back to plug-in hybrid, John Snyder.
Hey, how's it going?
Be a really long title.
Yeah, we should make that official.
We'll have to get all sorts of new business cards. But yeah, a lot going on here in the car business. Yeah, I am definitely I'm ready to go. I skipped lunch, but I had a Starbucks espresso shot from my in-house espresso maker. So I'm feeling definitely wired, ready to go. And I've pivoted back to some afternoon French roast, also from Starbucks.
I had an apple with some peanut butter and a homemade snickerdoodle cookie. And I'm having some tea.
All right. This sounds like a pretty, caffeinated, healthy-ish podcast. So yeah, which is the opposite of the Super Bowl, where I ate nonstop dips. We had, what did we have? I think we had fajitas, which was good. Did you watch any of the car commercials? Any of those look pretty good to you?
I wasn't paying close attention to the Super Bowl this year. We were trying to get the kids to bed. And
yeah, it's at a bad time for,
I watched the first half, but I was sort of in and out, cooking, cleaning, baths, that sort of stuff. But and I didn't really, I guess I was kind of rooting for the 49ers. But I didn't really care that much about either of the teams. Kind of wish I had stayed up and watched the overtime, but we ended up, once the kids were in bed, catching up on Masters of the Air, which is
excellent.
Yeah, really good show. I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's by the same person as Band of Brothers, right?
Yep. It's Amblin Entertainment, and yeah, it follows the flying fortresses around World War II. It's really, really suspenseful and good and intense and neat. Some good up and coming actors too, I feel like. Yeah,
no, that's true. Yeah, it's Apple TV Plus or whatever they call it. I think we're going to drop Netflix or Peacock and then cycle into one of those. That's usually what we do. It's like we have Hulu, then we drop that, then you get, cycle into the other ones. And right now, Big Ten basketball is on Peacock for a fair amount of games. So I kind of need to keep that for a little bit, at least until tournament season. So we'll see there. Yeah, we'll see. But let's talk about this Cadillac you've been driving. You have the CT4-V Blackwing, which associate editor Byron Hurd has one in his long-term fleet, as in he owns one.
Yeah.
I think it's a really compelling car. I tend to like the 5 just a little bit more because it's, I just like the fact that it's a little bit more of a larger, almost 5 Series competitor. I like that in a sports sedan. I also have always kind of liked the E-Class and the 5 Series. It's a really interesting car, though. What did you do with it?
This is my first Blackwing I've driven.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I just drove it around a lot. Any excuse I could get to take it out and drive it. It was fantastic. Manual transmission was really good. Really, really grippy. I had pretty good weather for it. So that was nice. But man, it is just a really well-balanced car between performance and comfort. I felt like I had plenty of power, never too much that it wanted to take a bite out of me. And yeah, really, it just works with you very well. It sort of makes you feel a little heroic, kind of like the it reminded me a little bit of the 1 Series M Coupe in that way. Just one of those like high performing cars that's also really sort of easy to manage and easy to drive hard without feeling like you're putting your life or anyone else's at danger. And yeah, generally just very attractive. This one was in like a fire truck red, beautiful color. Yeah, and then this one has the actual Blackwing lettering on the badges, which Byron was a little jealous of. He came by and we swapped cars, so he could get some time in this one to compare it to his. But yeah, he was saying the same thing. Like, man, I can't wait for you to get in the 5 and see what that's like. That's a whole nother beast. But yeah, very, very fine car. I liked it quite a bit.
What I think is interesting about the 4 versus the 5 is they're not slightly, they are different animals. You know, with the Blackwing in the 5, you could get as big as that 6.2 liter hand-built supercharged V8. So what I like about the 4, and not just the Blackwing, is I think it's a good successor to like the ATS. It's really like a chassis, like almost like a chassis first car, if you will. Like to me, it's not about the raw power; it's about the handling. So,
yeah, it's another one of those things where it's like not too crazy, loud or anything, but it does sound really good. You know, when you're downshifting through the gears, when you've got a long runoff, it just sort of does this really sort of comforting and slightly pulse raising, just constant burble. It's not like snarly and crackly. It's just burble, 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 burble. And it's not too loud or obnoxious. It just sounds really good. It's really fun.
Yeah. What did you do with your Blackwing?
I took the kids all over the place, and whenever I was going anywhere, the kids wanted to be in it. they both really loved it too, which is really neat. They thought it was really sweet. But I just I sort of drove it around, some of the back roads. I'm sort of right on the edge of Ann Arbor, just like a hop over the city line. So just drive out toward like North Territorial, and there's all sorts of neat little curvy back roads out there. And so I just spent a lot of time doing that. And it just plays along really nicely. And then when I was shuttling the kids around and whatnot, it was also perfectly good for that. A decent amount of room in the back for the kids. Lola wasn't kicking the back of my seat too much. So I was just out there enjoying it, sort of testing the limits of the grip on launch and that sort of thing. Really, really impressed with it. Just really well nailed down car.
Yeah, I've said this before, not just on the podcast, but in general. I really like the design, the aesthetics of the CT4 and the CT5. I think it's still very demonstrative, and it has a deep character, but it also feels very like American. It feels very authentic for Cadillac, and I think it's just a more attractive look than some of the even more angular Cadillacs from from the previous generation. So I really like the looks of what they've done with these two sedans. I think it's they're very compelling. I think there's no reason not to buy one of these, if you're benchmarking it against a Mercedes or a BMW or an Audi.
Yeah, and still very familiar as a Cadillac, very sort of unique to Cadillac design style without sort of aping any other cars out there, which I like. And it doesn't overdo anything either. It's it's sort of classy. I wouldn't quite say conservative, because it does look pretty muscular and stuff, but it's not out there at all. I would feel just as comfortable pulling up to the opera in this as I would pulling up to a Cars and Coffee.
I think it fits in nicely with I've used this example before, where I think it's a nice throwback to the early 60s Cadillac designs, sort of that almost like you get past the very over the top like fins of the 50s, but it's before you got those kind of just total land barges of the 70s. Like the Eldorado comes to mind. In the early 60s, things like the Coupe de Ville, I think really, it's a good look for Cadillac. And this is, stay with me here, I think it's almost like the spiritual successor to that age of Cadillac design, which I think is, I believe it was post Harley Earl. You're more into like the Bill Mitchell era at that point.
Okay. Yeah.
So you like the car.
Yes.
We had a discussion before about trying to get like an American luxury car. You were on the podcast for this, for a friend of Autoblog who was looking to get a sedan. And we're like, well, CT5 was about it. And then we came out with like a Volvo, I think S90, which is Scandinavian. You mentioned the Teslas. I threw out the CT5 and the Lincoln Continental, which I thought spoke to kind of like a larger challenge of where is American luxury right now?
Yeah.
And since we're talking caddies, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think Cadillac's in a transition period. I saw an electric Escalade on the road last weekend, and I was struck by how it must have been a prototype, how different it looked than the gasoline-powered one. And I thought it looked pretty good. And then you've got the Celestiq, which is just enormous, but it's so striking. And I really think that's such a good play for them to go so aggressively with such a halo car. But the Lyriq has been a slow roll. Like, we're just finally seeing them getting out, into like personal fleets. So, what do you think about Cadillac as opposed to, say, the Germans, Lincoln? I don't know. What do you think?
They definitely seem to really have their own sort of American identity. They're not trying to copy the Germans, not trying to go head to head with them. They're trying to sort of just create their own identity, and it definitely works here. I mean, like you were saying, like American luxury, American performance. This is something I'd point to. A lot of the Cadillac vehicles, even the Lyriq is really, really fun to drive.
It is, really is. It's a great interior, I think.
Oh my God, the interior is beautiful. The design, the attention to detail in it, it's pretty amazing. But yeah, I think they're sort of maybe in a bit of a transition period, of course, as they're making more EVs. But what they're doing on both sides of that transition, the internal combustion and the EV, I think they're both getting them both right. Apart from maybe some of the electrical and software problems that they're having with the Lyriq. I mean, same thing with GM that we're seeing with the Blazer EV and whatnot. I think that was sort of dogging the Lyriq's launch from the get-go. So if they can get those gremlins figured out, I think just very compelling as an answer to something that is sort of aspirational without being too far out of reach and without being obnoxious. Pretty much all their vehicles, the Celestiq sort of being the outlier there, just because it's multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars and very eye-catching design. But yeah, for the rest of their stable, I think very much capturing that sort of zeitgeist. I'm pleased with how they're straddling both sides of that fence.
I think there's some new daylight for them as well. Is CEO Mary Barra of GM mentioned that they're going to make more hybrids and ostensibly plug-in hybrids too. So I think there's a number of vehicles that could be retrofitted with like a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid powertrain, and you could get some more mileage out of that. Frankly, the CT4 and 5, I think, would be ripe for that if they were to go down that road. Riswick, our West Coast and features guy, wrote a column about GM's fits and starts with EVs over the years. And one of the things he mentioned was going back to the ELR, which was the Cadillac Volt. So I think Cadillac could do a good, they could sort of cherry pick some of these, hybrid tech off the parts bin out of the storeroom here, see what might be lurking in the storeroom at Warren or something and,
Mm-hmm.
kind of augment their lineup. But it could add some sales, and I think it could be good for, enthusiasts of all stripes.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, the more options they put out there, the better. I mean, there's still lots of people that don't want anything to do with the battery, and then there's lots of people that do want a battery, and some people just can't make the EV thing work for their lifestyle yet. And plug-in hybrids sort of bridge that gap, get more electric miles on the road, and bring down the cost of ownership and provide a more sort of compelling and dynamic and also smoother and comfortable ride if they do it right, blending the internal combustion and the electric power seamlessly, which I think GM can pull that off.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's definitely an opportunity for them. And don't forget the Vistic is out there as well. Apparently, I'm looking around, seeing some spy shots for that. Different blogs are out there covering it. So.
Yeah, the Vistic will be interesting too.
It will be, yeah. I mean, I kind of like their naming scheme. Like Lyric, Vistic, I think it's Celestic. They sound again like 1920s cruise ships, but hey, I think it sounds good. Everything doesn't have to have a letter and a number, so I think this is kind of cool. Go for it, right?
And the IQ at the end, but it being part of an actual word is a lot better than like EQ number, letter, number, that sort of thing. It makes them a little more memorable and but also cohesive with the IQ. And when you buy a vehicle, that IQ is the common denominator. It makes you feel smart.
That is a great way to put it. That's a really good way to put it. All right. Well, tell me about this Kia Seltos you've been in. How did that go?
It's good. I've had it. I got it on Monday, and I've been driving around. The one I'm in is the SX Turbo all-wheel drive, and the sticker on this one is $33,000. And it feels like a really great car for that price. You get a lot of content, a lot of comfort. The 24, it feels definitely powerful. Like, I definitely doesn't feel slow at all. And the conventional automatic transmission is great. Like a lot of Kias, packed with content from even the lower trims. So this one has a lot of that stuff baked in. A nice audio system, really good driver assist tech, and it's quite comfortable. It's funny. I just got out of the Genesis GV70, the electrified GV70, and that sort of looks and feels and drives bigger to me than the Seltos. The Seltos actually has more room in the second row, which my kids are enjoying, and I'm enjoying being able to sit in whatever comfortable seating position I want without having to move the seat for them to make sure their legs aren't squished. So, but yeah, it's a really compelling vehicle in that sort of a small SUV space, a really good value. Also, if you're buying it, you get that great 5-year warranty, which is always, it's something that you don't necessarily think about when you're deciding on the cars you like, but when you go down to buy it, that's something that makes it's a bit of a can help make the decision. I'm really quite enjoying it. Our video producer Amr has one.
That's right.
And driving this, I've been thinking about him, and he's been raving about how he loves his. And when I've been driving this, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm happy for Ahmed. This is a great car. It's pretty compact, but still, like I said, there's a decent amount of room for passengers. Cargo space is a little limited. I've been having to, when we pack up for karate, have to like sort of stick the bow staffs over the headrests, that sort of thing. And it'll just be me and Wally going skiing this weekend, so I can just put down one side of the seats. I'll be curious to see how well the skis fit even then. Just that cargo area is kind of small-ish. It's not too terribly small, but I'm thinking about it in terms of putting longer things in it compared to like the GB70 that sacrificed second row space for, had really good cargo space. This sort of gives a little bit more of that room to the passengers. But I think for most use cases, luggage, groceries, things like that, normal things that you put in your car on a day-to-day basis. It's the cargo area is actually pretty well shaped and decently sized.
Yeah, I liked it when I drove it. I think it really exemplifies the things like Kia does well. You get a lot of value, kind of interesting design on the outside, very solid interior, and it's it affects the feeling of just good value.
Yeah,
you get a little more bang for your buck, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. Like this, 33,000, I've got ventilated front seats, the power liftgate, the power sunroof, digital key. If I cared to set that up, which if I, next car I own, I'd really like to be able to use my car as a key. I use the app for our Palisade all the time to lock and unlock it when, I've like Cat's like, you got to run out to the car and get Lola's diaper bag or whatever. And I never remember to grab the keys from her. So I walk out and I tap a button on my phone and I'm in the car. If I could do that and drive it too, that'd be great. So things like that, lots of, nice leather, the Syntex seating is really convincing, really comfortable, but then you get like the leather wrap steering wheel and shift knob and things like that. And just the regular highway driving assist suite of driving assist technology is really good. This isn't the highway driving assist 2 yet, which is even more advanced, but highway driving assist 1 is excellent. Really, really good bang for your buck with this.
It's a good name too. I think speaking of names, I think Seltos, I don't know why it reminds me of like Alka-Seltzer, just the name, but like a seltzer water, I don't know. But
like a combination of seltzer and Mentos or something.
Yes. Well, that would be an interesting drink now, wouldn't it?
If it doesn't fizz up like Mentos and Coke. Maybe
drop some, some gin in there. Could give it a different vibe, or tequila. Probably not tequila. All right. Let's talk about this wrap.
Mint and tequila can go together.
Mint and tequila. I didn't think of that. I was joking, but I clearly wrong. That could work. I tend to think gin and then maybe like a garnish of some lime could be good.
Yeah.
Winter cooler. Nice transition as you get into the little bit longer days of spring. Yeah. All right. Should we talk about the Rex?
Yeah.
Our long-termer?
Yes. The more we talk about this, throughout the workday, as everyone's sort of chiming in about it, the more I just can't wait to drive this our long-termer, this generation. It's the first one that has me excited since the 04 that I owned. So
you had the bug-eyed ones, right?
I had the blob eye. They made the
blob eye. Okay.
They made the bug eye for 2 years. Gave it a little facelift with the blob eye for 2 years, and then and then changed it some more with the
Okay.
with the 06.
Yeah. Okay.
05, they changed it.
Yeah, that would be. I think that car. You have the Volkswagen Beetle though, so
Yeah.
I mean, but if you're looking to just have like a fun thing in the garage,
Oh, yeah.
man, that would be a fun one to still have around. But wouldn't take up too much space either. So what I'm going to talk about this week is a little, I don't know, a little trite, but it's a CD player. Post went up on Friday. Check it out. This is your first review of a CD player in a car since 2011. I don't know. It was a $375 option. So we went ahead and checked that box. And I had a blast with it during my 3+ weeks in the car. I put all my old CDs, my Case Logic CD sleeve, and I just rolled around with them. And it's the CD player is right in the center console. So I actually liked it better than having installed in the dash, like you might remember different aftermarket ones would get done. So that was pretty cool. And I'm just listening to Counting Crows, like all those old albums from the 90s and early 2000s. It's really a great pleasure to listen to an album all the way through. And I don't really do that anymore. Yeah. But in a car, you can, and you can do it anywhere, of course, but you just don't. And I don't know, for $375, I think I would check that box on this car. I think it'd probably be worth it. It's a little bit of a splurge, but it adds something. I also wonder if the novelty would wear off and I would just be driving around with a bunch of CDs, listening to satellite radio and sports and NPR maybe, but I don't know. It was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I keep thinking I'm done with CDs, but I still have some laying around, a lot of them from high school. And when I do, have the occasional car with a CD player in it, every once in a while I'll bust some of those out and play them in the car and listen to albums that I forgot I loved for 20 years or whatever. I don't think I would check that options box, but it is fun to sort of go back and listen to those things I otherwise wouldn't. And then once I've listened to them on CD, I just download them on my phone. Just start streaming those albums. But it is a way to sort of rediscover some old favorites.
Yeah, no, part of me feels like it's probably the nostalgia thing, but hey, it works, especially in this car too, because it's a manual transmission. It's the Subaru WRX, which in itself is, makes history come alive, I think.
Yeah.
It's, half of the car is the legend, if you will. And then also you've got to it's just an old school thing to drive. It's a sports sedan that's stiff as all hell. And, again, it's a manual. The engine's a little coarse. It's loudish. I've definitely driven louder things, but it's loudish, and this to me just adds to the vibe. It's a nice soundtrack for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A big thing I'm going to want to hear from you is if you think this is a worthy successor when you get into it. I know I kind of thought you might be up next. I guess where did it go? It went from Zach to me to, I think it's at Joel's house. I think news editor Joel Stockstill has it. So he cut in front of the line, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a little bit because I'm getting our, soon to be long-termer, the CX-90. So that's coming to me
be a good one
within the next week. So I'll be checking that out for a while before I doing all the family type reviews and that before I start doing the historical comparison in the WRX. But I can't wait, man. I can't wait. It would have been nice to get it with some snow because geez Louise, that's the thing I missed the most about my WRX was just driving it in the snow was the most fun thing in the world.
It's a tank. It really is. So I mean, the Blizzaks, just total champions. I had it for probably the time we had the most snow this year, which was kind of late January, early February. So it was really good in that. And it also made me think if I were to look at this as a daily driver, now I would probably never get a Rex as a daily driver just for my station in life and the different things I need to do. But there's certain press cars you get in, you're like, yeah, it's awesome, but I couldn't make this a daily driver for here's the reason. But driving this thing in the winter, which you knew it would be just an absolute trucker, but it also actually doing it made me think, oh yeah, I could do this. I really could, because daily driving in the snow with, a manual transmission car that's low to the ground, I discovered how sort of like harsh it could be. And I was like, yeah, but it's still not that bad, and I think it's worth that trade-off for the 3 weeks that we get snow in winter now. And then you get like this awesome sports sedan in the summer. So, but I do think the Blizzaks help, obviously.
Yeah. Oh man. Just sounds like fun.
The orange color is awesome too. I really like that. I'm glad we got that. The blue, which I think is honestly, it's probably a nicer look. Maybe get those Sparko gold wheels, which don't fit on this one, but that's a great aesthetic too. Very like Subaru Rally inspired.
I feel like everyone's going to have the blue though.
Yeah, I like the orange a lot. It's another sort of Subaru vibe.
Yeah.
So check out that story. Let me know if you are driving around with your CDs and like a newer car. I mean, how that's still working out for you. I'm curious. It was a little bit of a trip back in time for my final week here in the WRX. Palmer took it on Monday, and we'll see if I get another month or two in it before it goes back at the end of, we've spent 2 months in it, 10 to go.
All right.
So let's talk some news. Chrysler has a EV concept. This is sort of the successor to the Airflow. This is they call it the Halcyon. You think I'm saying that right? Is it pronounced like the word, or I don't know if they have a special bespoke pronunciation? How do you think they say this?
Halcyon.
Okay, so we'll go with that. We'll say the word as it's pronounced. With car companies, it's never a given, especially with concepts. You remember the Chiron? For a long time, people thought it was pronounced the Chiron from Bugatti. And I don't know where that came from, but I feel like half the car journalism mispronounced it for like a year until somebody else said it's that. And I still don't really know what it is. So for me, I think this is interesting that they're continuing the conversation on this front. Mm-hmm. Chrysler knows how to make great designs. If anything, I think their sort of merger with, Peugeot, PSA, Citroën to create this Stellantis, monster of a company has helped the design department. I think it looks really good. So I don't know. I mean, for me, it's just they got to do another 300, and this kind of allows us to sort of think that they're going to. So
yeah, I mean, it would sort of replace, if they did make an electric sedan, it would be sort of a good replacement for the 300. I don't think anyone's going to mistake this design. This is definitely not inspired by that in terms of design at all, but in terms of where it fits in the lineup, which would be the other thing in the lineup. It fits. I do like the design. It's not doesn't look typically Chrysler to me, but it does sort of go along with some of the concepts they've been showing us. I like it. I don't know that. I don't know. It does look kind of exotic, so I think that might have its draw to it. But people would just, I don't see people looking at this and going, "That's a Chrysler,"
Cool. Well, let's segue. We'll kind of bounce through some news here. Tesla won the charging wars. You think so? I don't know. Or is it just an armistice? I don't know.
I don't think it's
peace for 20 years. Hard to say.
I mean, it's like if you can't beat them, join them. They have the better charging standard. It's more approachable. It's easier to use. It's had more testing, real world testing. I think it's a definitely a good thing, especially for people who are sort of maybe intimidated by those big clunky CCS plugs and those, thick gauge cables that, are so easy to trip over and hard to maneuver around your car when you're trying to plug it in. The Teslas are a dream compared to those to use. So it makes it feel a little bit more like plugging in an appliance than, having to plug in, some giant machine. And yeah, like there's already infrastructure all over the country that with which it's compatible. And, if Tesla continues to build more, and now every automaker that is adopting this is committing to building more chargers with this standard. I think that's great. The having one standard across the U.S. and having it be the superior standard is wonderful. The only drawback is for Europe is sticking with CCS as far as I can tell. So it just makes it a little more complicated if you're building cars and exporting them for various markets. It'd be nice to see a global charging standard. And I feel like that would have been CCS just because so many other parts of the world use it. But I'm glad that the US is using this because it's better. It's just better. And I would rather use that. And, I would rather have the NACS standard on my EV when I buy it. I hope it doesn't, deter people from adopting EVs now, but I could see it doing that. People not wanting to buy something that just has a CCS plug that you're going to have to buy an adapter for in a couple of years. I mean, the same thing with the way CHAdeMO was a couple of years ago. Now at least there's an adapter for that to CCS, but yeah, I feel like, I would consider holding off on my purchase for a couple of years until it's actually, in more mainstream production and all the different automakers that have committed to using it. Or I would go out and buy a Tesla instead, which there's other cars I would rather have, but I want to have the right charging standard.
Yeah, you got to give Tesla a lot of credit because they really looked at the electric car as a whole situation.
Yeah.
And they thought far ahead. Yeah. No, I mean, other companies should have thought that way.
Yeah. They're thinking more about the product rather than necessarily the whole life living with the product. So that's one thing. That's a huge advantage for Tesla that they've had all along. Is they just build a ton of infrastructure right away, and it actually works. Huge advantage for Tesla.
No, I think it'll be a revenue provider for years to come for them, as well as they sort of, the deals they've struck with like Ford was the first one, and the way they sort of shaped their business model, and, they were there first, and, they had the foresight to see where this was going to go. It seemed like the other automakers just assumed it would be like you build a car and you don't worry about the gas station,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
When you're trying to change consumers, it doesn't really work that way. So cool. Well, speaking of EVs, the Kia EV8, this could be the long-awaited successor to the Kia Stinger, which we really liked. We had a long-term one. I think it was a GT. We had a lot of fun with that. That was a beast of a car. I can't believe they did that. It really was a shooting star. Lasted for a few years. I remember the concept car they showed at the Detroit Auto Show. We did videos on it. And yeah, it was a, Halley's Comet. It was in and out and it's gone. But now makes all the sense in the world to bring back it as, an electric guise. This is a little speculative. We're seeing stuff from Korean car blog, which we translated. So, it's a little bit of a, we got you definitely, this isn't for sure 100% happening, but reports out there. And I think, you mentioned, like we talked about the Seltos earlier, and I think Kia has done a really good job of getting into all sorts of segments, creating value and creating identity. And I think the Stinger at its best did that. So I think if they were to come back with something electric, it could work. And the EV8 would be a great name. I don't quite get, is it going to be like a sedan? Because what are they going to do? Make a really big sedan and put it on top of the EV6 and some of the other stuff we're seeing? So I have questions on that front. But generally, I think they should do this. It would be a nice brand halo for them if they do it as described.
Yeah, I would. Thinking about the Stinger, it did have sort of that longer wheelbase. It was a little longer than the Genesis G70 at least, and plenty of room. You could get a good sort of skateboard chassis under that, and yeah, I think it would be a good candidate for electric power. The i4 that they offer was a little harsh, but the twin turbo V6 was really nice and smooth. I feel like that translates pretty well to the electric feel. Just good power across the rev range in our long termer. And then if you want something an entry level version with a little less power, I would rather have a very smooth electric motor than the 2.5T that they offered. And yeah, if they can keep it low enough to the ground and still make it comfortable. I mean, you have to fit a battery pack under where people are going to sit. So, which could make a little more sense in sort of a GT sort of sedan like this, where you might sort of want to be like in like a little bit more of a race car position than like an upright position that you would in a crossover. But like in the EV9, and some other like Kia Niro, things like that, you're sort of your legs are your knees are pretty high up just because you're sitting on top of that battery pack, and they don't have a lot of room to go lower with the floor, so if they can manage to make that comfortable, and with an EV you can, I suppose you could use that space where there would be an internal combustion engine in the front, move the front seats forward, take advantage of that room, and give more leg room to the rear passengers, and have them all just sort of, in that little bit more sporty reclined sort of pilot position, and it would work quite well. But yeah, I would love to see an electric Kia GT sedan. I loved the Stinger so much. My brother-in-law just bought one a couple months ago. Yeah.
Which one did he get?
He got the GT one with the V6.
Okay.
And it's gray, but it's not like a metallic gray. It's like a flat gray.
Yeah, I can picture that. It's a good look.
Not a matte, but just like that sort of flat color. But yeah, it looks great, and he loves it. He had a Ford Taurus show that that was starting to finally fall apart. And before that, he had an Acura RSX. So I like his style. I like his lineage of vehicles. I think the Stinger is a great one for him. They've got my older nephew has now graduated high school, but they still have another boy who they have to tote around, who's getting quite big. He's I think 11 years old now, fifth grade, and getting huge. So he's got to fit in the back.
A little bit of a non sequitur here. We were talking about the show last week because it was a pretty prominent reveal at the 2009 Chicago Auto Show, and just the SHO was top of mind. And one sold in 1990 with let's see, it sold for about $4,000, 4,001, which it's a pretty beat up car, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, it's I think it's a tired 34-year-old car in gray. But this was on Haggerty, and I don't know if he decides he wants to get one back. I mean, this had the 3-liter V6 with the manual. So, I mean, this was an interesting car. Haggerty says it did 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds, which is really quick for the 90s. And this had the Yamaha 3-liter dual overhead cam. Oh my gosh. You want the actual mileage, though, is listed at 152,680. Okay. Holy cow. That would be a lot on that powertrain and that just chassis and everything about it. So I don't know. You said the word Taurus show, so it got in my head. I like how your brother-in-law thinks, though. Those wouldn't be exactly the cars I would get, but I could see myself doing it. I would be more like 96 Chevy Impala or something. I could go down that road, but just end up at a few different spots, Yeah. Same idea, though. So, all right, should we spend some money? Let's see. This comes from Reddit's Our Cars thread. If you would like to get into the mailbag or spend some money, that's podcast@autoblog.com. This writer comes to us from the Mid-Atlantic region near DC, looking for about $1,000 a month lease payment, looking for a new vehicle, a luxury crossover. The must-haves are a comfortable ride that handles more like a car than an SUV, excellent sound system, good driver assistance technologies to make long drives easy, and just some basic luxury features like heated seats, the steering, and remote start. So I assume he wants the car to have steering. Don't quite know what that means. Automatic transmission, daily driver. Looked at the Macan, the RX 550, BMW iX, X4, Audi Q5, GLC 330, F-Pace, Genesis GV70, Mach-E, Cadillac Lyric. Currently drives a Hyundai Sonata. Open to an EV as long as the range is around 300 miles, which does narrow the field a bit. There's a lot to unpack with here. I mean, at first blush, and I have to double check, I think the Macan is a nice play here. Just you'll enjoy it. It's a Porsche. You're going to pay for it. But I mean, whenever I drive the Macan or Cayenne, I come away feeling like Porsche does probably the best job of making their crossovers feel like they're sports cars. So lots of good stuff on this list. But a Porsche Macan lease, if you can find one, I think could be a lot of fun. Yeah,
the Macan was my first thought too. You don't get quite the things like the driver assistance tech and like some of those basic luxury features are not standard in Porsche, and you're going to have to option for those, which you can probably do and still hopefully meet your lease budget. But if you're looking for a good handling car, that's the one. And also I believe you can get the Burmester sound system in that, which is excellent. I think the standard is Bose, maybe. No,
sounds right.
No, there's this Bose is like the second one up. There's like three different ones in there. So that would be a great one. I was considering picking the Mercedes but I'm not sure if the Burmester. I think the Burmester system's available in the GLC, but I'm not sure. But I think for one that drives well, that's the one. I would also potentially consider the BMW iX.
Yes, that's a good car. good crossover.
You can get good range in that. Some of the tech is a little frustrating to use, but it's excellent to drive. A very, you can get, I think up to 324 miles of range in that. Other ones I thought of from this list, the GV70, but again, that drives a little bit more like an actual SUV than a car. Mm-hmm. And then the Lyriq, it sort of straddles the line, maybe a little bit leaning more towards SUV in terms of the way it drives, but definitely going to feel really good sitting in it. It feels very luxurious, and hopefully you don't get any of those electronic gremlins.
Yeah.
But as for if depends on what's more important to you. If the driver assist system was more important to you, then yeah, the BMW or Genesis would be good. If the driving like a car is more important to you, BMW or Porsche Macan.
A couple other ones that I kind of like the GV80, which according to TrueCar you can lease for $766, and if you want like all of the stuff on the buffet here, Genesis is usually there for you. They have much like Kia and Hyundai, they're good values. You get a lot of stuff, so you could definitely load those up and probably get a little bit of a better deal. And then when it came to electrics, the Mach-E I think would be a lot of fun. Since you're already looking at like a luxury crossover, I mean, you're probably willing to pay more, which means you could get a pretty nice Mach-E. So that's tempting,
you
as
get
well.
it with the Blue Cruise too, which is surprisingly good to use, which would be quite nice. And you can get Super Cruise in the Lyriq too.
Yes. It's
Mach-E,
they added that for
Mach-E. You might have a little more budget for upgrading to the options you want to.
I generally whenever I've driven Super Cruise, I've liked it. I haven't spent as much time in Blue Cruise. So, that is irrespective of nothing. I personally haven't driven it, but I liked Super Cruise when I drove it. I drove it in, I think, an Escalade. So for Cadillac specifically. And I really like the Lyriq too. I tend to think we could go down this rabbit hole for hours, but Mach-E versus Lyriq, as far as like domestic EVs, just they happen to be on the list here of cross shopping. That would be a really tough call for me. I think, I feel like this morning I'm leaning Cadillac, but I don't know totally why. Like if a Mach-E was in my driveway, I'd be thrilled and excited to drive it. But I don't know, I felt the Lyriq just had a little extra mojo to it. It felt a little more like an expensive Cadillac EV, whereas the Mach-E felt like a really nice Ford electric vehicle is a crossover that also happened to be called a Mustang. So
the Lyriq definitely feels more expensive than it is by kind of a lot.
Yes.
But the Mach-E I think that's just really, really fun. It's really fun to drive. Especially, for like 0 to 60 rips and that sort of thing. It maybe doesn't have it handles more like a muscle car than than other, sort of sports cars. But if that's what you're into, then it's a little soft, a little floaty, sort of does weird things in the corners, but it's fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's the whole point too.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Any winter, as we even segue into spring, drink recommendations?
Let's see. What have I had lately? What did I have recently? I haven't been drinking much lately. But I ordered something the other day that was something I hadn't had in a long time. Oh, Pacifico. I'm sorry, not Pacifico. It's Sol. I like Pacifico, competitor. Okay. Sol, Mexican beer. With a lime in it.
That's really a nice one.
Really sort of got me in the mood for for vacation. So
that's not spring. That's summer right there. That's beach beer.
It was, we went to a Mexican restaurant and I was like, I haven't had that in forever.
Yeah.
And like, I don't see Sol around very much. I remember seeing it the one time I was in Mexico so yeah, I ordered it and was like, oh man, this is good. Like it's nothing crazy special, but when was the last time you had just a Mexican beer with a lime in it from the bottle?
That's true. That's a really good way to put it.
It sort of felt like July in the winter a little bit, which lifted my spirits quite a bit.
I think that's the whole point of having a drink like that is it can be very situational.
Yeah,
I like it. Yeah. Now I kind of want to try that actually.
I feel a little like too bogged down in winter to sort of bog myself down with heavy beers right now.
That's a good way to look at it. That's a good way to look at it. Let's see, I played golf last week when it was 63 degrees, and I then got a sixer of Heineken Zero, which is the non-alcoholic one. Mm-hmm. Just kind of work that in every now and then, throw a change up, and that was light and good. Then I have the opposite of that, Guinness downstairs in the fridge, which, it's February 15th. I'm already trying to position towards spring, but it's not. It's snowing. So the Guinness, I think, will serve me for another good 6 weeks, get through St. Patrick's Day. And at that point,
Guinness is good any time of year, man.
It is.
When you want something heavy, you can trick yourself into thinking it's heavy. When you want something, sort of light and drinkable, it's surprisingly like drinkable. It's very smooth, not too thick and full bodied. It's just a good all arounder.
No, in fact, I don't think I'm gonna have to shovel tonight because the sun seems to be doing a pretty good job, and we didn't end up getting that much. And I may have to reward myself, even if I just scrape the driveway with a Guinness, because you said it perfectly. It looks like this big, heavy, dark beer, but it's one of the most drinkable beers out there with a nice foamy head. And there's an ad. They were doing ads, like I think during like the height of like COVID and lockdown. And the tagline was "Until we meet again," because nobody was really going to bars. Yeah. And Joe Montana, the old 49ers quarterback, Notre Dame quarterback, was doing that line. He called it, I think he characterized it as velvety and light on its feet. And then the other guy at the bar goes, "Yeah, just like you." And then some other guy goes, who was that guy? Because, Joe Montana's like 65 at this point. But
I feel like that sort of dry style Irish stout, there's never a bad time for it, but not a bad time of year for it.
It's never a bad time for the Autoblog Podcast. And if you enjoy the show, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get the show. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next week.